But let's now turn to our final interview of the day. Father Andrew Rauenbuehler, pastor of St. Mary of the Visitation Catholic Church of Iowa City, vocations director for the Diocese of Davenport. Father Andrew, thank you for coming on the Catholic Morning Show.
Hey, it's good to be with you guys, and good job with my last name.
Oh, good. Well, we were wondering. Good. We'll mark that up on our stat page about getting that one right. So, so on the month of April, of course, Pope Leo the 14th and popes going back many centuries have had prayer intentions, and for April, it's particularly about priests in crisis. So when it comes to things like seminarians, formation, religious understanding, and this particular intention of Pope Leo, we thought what an important way in the month of April to have a vocations director to come on and speak to this idea of the priesthood and Pope Leo's prayer intention. So thank you for coming on to talk to us about this.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
So what do you think is motivating someone like, the Pope himself to have a prayer intentions like this, that we as the faithful should have this as a central prayer for the entire month?
Yeah, well, again, it's great to be with you guys. I think it's important to begin by saying that, study after study shows that priests are among some of the happiest and most satisfied people. Obviously the priesthood is a vocation, but also as a career path. It is deeply satisfying for a far majority of priests. But I think the Pope, being obviously the shepherd of the universal church, has a bigger view of the lay of the land and is certainly privy to the experiences and the struggles that priests around the world have. And so I think it's actually such a gift that as kind of the chief pastor of the church, he's bringing attention to this in a prayerful way, that while the priesthood is deeply satisfying for so many guys, for some it can also be a source of difficulty. And in any vocation that we have, there's going to be those moments of doubt, those moments of struggle, and priests as men are not immune from that. And so I think the fact that the Pope is willing to highlight that, but to bring that to our attention, that we might, as a church universal, pray for those priests who are going through a difficult time right now, I think just shows a lot of humility on his part, and also the fact that, he's not going to brush over and just say, hey, everything's fine, when we know there's brothers out there that need our prayer and support.
Well, I think one of the interesting things, of course, is for a long time and in many different places, trying to get vocations to the priesthood has been, let's be honest, like a desperate measure, right? Like we've been really looking to stem the tide of some of the downturns, as it were, in the number of vocations. But in doing so, I want to say I think we're starting to reach a good place in a few ways, right? We have some dioceses really hitting it out of the park. I think a lot of people are starting to see more young priests, but that maybe gives us a chance to be honest about if there are difficulties or if there's ways that we can prepare, especially young men, as they consider a vocation to the priesthood. And you start to see changes in seminary formation, even very recently, in trying to head some of those difficulties off at the past. As a vocations director, what do you see about maybe some of the changes and the differences that dioceses are doing when they make that offer to young men to consider the priesthood and in the formation as they go through training to become a priest?
Yeah, that's a great question, but to kind of remark on your first point there, just had a discernment dinner here in Iowa City last night, had about 20 men that was there, and I shared with them, listen, people will talk about the vocations crisis as though, hey, we just, we're running short and we just need to cover parishes and all of that, and maybe there's truth to that, but I mentioned to them something that I've found, like, hey, the harvest is plentiful, because there is this resurgence of interest, especially among young people, in the faith, and in Catholicism in particular. And so, this isn't just a time in which we're trying to cover our bases, but really, I think, to be on the offensive and recognizing people are coming. And so there's a lot of good work and ministry to be done. And so it's such an exciting time to be a priest. But also, recognizing that seminary formation has changed in recent years to I think, be cognizant of the fact that, the vocational call to the priesthood can take a toll on a man, and so he has to be solid in his human formation, in his spiritual formation, and being a man of fraternity and communion, and really allowing people to walk alongside him in his ministry. And so I found over the course of my own time in seminary, not all that long ago, but also with my awareness of kind of the formation that the guys are receiving now, of a greater emphasis on solid human formation. And so guys having the opportunity in a very helpful and supportive place to receive, counseling and support on some of those human factors that obviously are going to pay dividends in the priesthood when they're well formed and they themselves have been well grounded in solid human formation. And so I think that's been a really big piece and such a great advance for the church and for people in the pews that the church has taken upon herself to ensure that guys aren't just getting the intellectual and even just the spiritual formation in seminary, but that solid human formation. What does it mean to be a man? And what does it mean to live our lives in service of others? I think that's been such a great amount of progress has been made there in the seminary formation.
Yeah, taking very seriously, right, that grace perfects nature, so that if you don't attend to nature, the grace part can be difficult as well. Well, when it comes to the specifics of the prayer intention, right, priest in crisis, of course, that doesn't have to mean something like headline news grabbing. It can just mean a crisis of vocation, right, or difficulty. Yeah. And as you've already hinted, right, the priesthood, of course, from the youngest up to people who are, we have wonderful priests who have been retired but still fill in at 91, 92 here in the Diocese of Des Moines, for instance. But that's like a lot of different age groups. It's a lot of different seminary regimes. And so maybe is that part of it, too, is that sometimes maybe a priest gets caught in between changing sentiments, changing tides. It doesn't have to be, as it were, something that is even scandalous, but like that's what we need to start to pray about is the difficulties that some priests, hit quote unquote mid-vocation crises, and it's maybe a crisis of self-understanding or comfort level or something like this, much more than maybe sometimes people make it more extravagant than it needs to be.
Absolutely. We know some of those priests that we've unfortunately learned about through the headlines, but there's much simpler and smaller ways in which priests are maybe still grappling with or praying through their call. Life is full of ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and like I mentioned before, priests aren't immune from that. And so to know that the church is praying for those men, I know as a priest myself is such a consolation. How much the support and the prayers of my people here in Iowa City buoy me up, I think is already like such a great step in the right direction. That we're not going to be a church that just assumes everyone has to be okay, but we're going to be a church that, as the body of Christ, we're seeking to support those, even our own ministers that might be going through a difficult time. And to kind of your point too, each class of ordinandi, each class of priests is coming from their own particular cultural landscape. And so the needs of the church and the need of the church to support the men that are being called to the priesthood in their own particular time, that's going to change, from generation to generation. The men who are discerning into the priesthood now need a slightly different formation than guys who were discerning into the priesthood 50 years ago because of the culture and the world is different. And so I think recognizing some of those signs of the times and the needs of our particular age in the human formation as well as intellectual and spiritual formation, it is key to ensuring that guys are well formed and are going to be strong, healthy, and holy priests.
Well, maybe on the end here for the laity, sometimes people are confused. I mean, I'm a convert, but I've been at it for 20 years, and so you start to see, a bit of these changes as well. But sometimes I think people are not sure how to relate to their priests, right? Like on one hand, they're they're a spiritual authority. They are set apart for their vocation. But again, they're human, and like if we set them up on pedestals or out on a limb, right, they're going to get lonely, and it's going to be difficult. So, just with the brief time we have here at the end of this interview, Father, what would you say to the laity about what are obviously praying for priests, as the Pope said, but what else can we do to help precisely in this human way folks, these men who have answered the call to the vocation of priesthood?
Yeah, honestly, just like the occasional encouragement or just, thank you, Father, for all that you're doing. There's a lot to the priesthood that goes on unseen. And I love that about the priesthood. You're not doing this to get the accolades or to get the attention. Obviously, we're up in front on Sunday morning, and the goal there is not that people see us, that the people are led to Christ. But I think those little ways in which, as you're passing your priest on the way out of Mass, like you're able just to kind of recognize what they're doing and the sacrifices that you probably sense they're making to be the best priest possible for your parish. So I think those small little words of encouragement go a really long way, at least for me. Everybody wants to cook for you. I really appreciate that. I can only eat so many cookies though. But people just thanking you and encouraging you and maybe noticing kind of the small things that might otherwise kind of go unnoticed. That goes a long way, I think, for all of us in receiving some affirmation over the course of our ministry.
Well, this has been absolutely insightful and wonderful to hear from you. If people want to find out more about vocations in the Diocese of Davenport, where can they go find that on the internet?
Yeah, so on our diocesan website, which, I don't have it memorized, I think it's davenportdiocese.org, but if you Google Diocese of Davenport and vocations, it'll take you straight to the vocations page.
Absolutely wonderful. Father Andrew Rauenbuehler, pastor of St. Mary of Visitation Catholic Church of Iowa City, vocations director for the Diocese of Davenport. Father Andrew, thank you for coming on the Catholic Morning Show.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. God bless you guys.